guys, I'm Kat, and today I'm showing you a project that I've partnered with Robotime to create. In celebration of getting 25,000 subscribers on YouTube, Robotime is sponsoring an international giveaway, and the prize is your choice of any one of their in-stock items. Now pay attention because the rules are as follows. First, you must subscribe to and follow Robotime on Facebook, YouTube, and Instagram. Second, you must subscribe to me and follow me on YouTube and Instagram. And third, you must comment and like this video. I will check back here in a week at all the comments on the video, and then I'll announce the winner in about 10 days. In the meantime, I hope you guys enjoy this video very much, or at least as much as I enjoyed making it for you. So this is the kit that Robotime sent me, and this is the Lisa's Tailor kit. But of course it was a little bright and colorful for my personal taste, and I wanted to glam it up a little bit. You can see the packaging on it is very nice and very neat and clean, even though it was shipped overseas. And inside, you're greeted immediately with a full color brochure written with English instructions. The packets are clearly labeled and come with everything that you need. I didn't use much of the fabrics, but I used pretty much most of everything else, and I made some major adjustments to it. So we're going to start first with the pieces that have the roof, the walls, and the floor. Now the kit wants you to assemble the window so it's facing the outside. I faced mine towards the inner corner. And the kit comes with paint, although mine did not. But I decided not to paint it at all, and I wanted to use some shiny wallpaper. So using a glue stick, I glued on some paper that I got from Staples. It's a light silver or gray, shiny, pearlescent kind of paper. I glued it on, and I cut out details like the windows and the slots where tabs are supposed to go. Then I painted the other details that would be visible with black. And now to glue the walls in place, and then the floor. Now this is just a support for the floor. The battery is going to actually go underneath this, and so you put a floor on top of it. Next I pulled out the windows, and I pulled out the piece for the smaller window and put that to the side. I won't be using that as a window at all. I painted the blue pieces white and the white pieces black, and then I glued them all into place. I put the sill in first, followed by the actual windows. Then the trim. While this was drying, I decided to start on my floor. Now this came with a piece of colored paper to glue onto the floor, but I'm not using that at all. Instead, I'm using some coffee stir sticks, and I pulled out all the ones that were a little misshapen or off size. I only wanted ones that were almost identical in size. I glued these together into groups of 4, and then cut out squares by layering them corner to corner and cutting off the excess on either side. I did this until I had about 90 squares total. I didn't use all of them, but I did use most of them. And then I laid down some glue onto the floor piece that was provided and started laying down the pieces horizontally, then vertically, then horizontally, then vertically, and then so on until the whole floorboard was completely filled. I allowed it to dry and then I cut off the excess. Now I'm using scissors for this, but some people definitely prefer to use a knife or any other sort of tool. And next, I sanded it using 3 separate grits of sandpaper, 60, 90, and 120. Then I gave it a coating of stain, I sanded it again, and then I gave it 2 more coats of stain before sanding it and staining it one final time. Then I covered it with some varnish and put that to the side. Now the kit comes with a battery pack, a white extender wire, and a light bulb. But I wanted 2 lights, so I'm going to add my own extra light. I twisted together the black wires and the white wire from the extender wire, and then I also twisted together the red and the yellow. I'm using a heat shrink tube that the company provided, and you simply slip this over the exposed wires and heat it with a match or a lighter. Now I'm going to place the light bulb that I'm providing to the one side and the yellow and white extender wires into the corner. I used a straw to cover those, simply by painting it white. It looks a little more like a column, and that way you can insert the 2 extender wires inside and they stay hidden. I fed that up over the roof, and then to make a chandelier, I'm using a piece of plastic packaging that I rolled into a cylinder and another circle I cut to fit above it. Then I got these little gems from Dollar General, and they're actually kind of like a rubber gem. They're not hard plastic at all, and they come on an adhesive sheet. I'm not going to use the adhesive, so I just peeled the gems off and stuck them directly onto the plastic using some glue. Then I threaded the light piece over the bulb, and voila, I have a chandelier. Test to make sure both your lights are working, and move on to the curtains. I'm going to use the grommets that the company provided, as well as the wire that they gave me for the curtains. I bent the wire, and I painted the wire and the grommets black and put those in place. Next, I'm using this piece of hairnet, but it's very similar to fabric fuse or also a dryer sheet that's been washed. So you could use either of those to substitute. That way I have a nice filmy and light curtain that hangs quite easily. But just to help make it look more like it's been affected by gravity, I'm going to hang this and add some clamps to the bottom. And now I'm going to take a solution of water and glue and just put this on pretty liberally across the curtains. This will stiffen them and hold them into place. There, here's my entire room. Now it's time for furniture. So you can see the piece of window that I put to the side earlier, and this is actually the bookshelf that I'm assembling now. But I'm not going to make this into a bookshelf, I'm making it into a display. So I put aside the 3 longest pieces, and I'm using the doors and the shelves to make a small box. Then I added a piece of cardstock to the back, and additionally a piece of extra jumbo popsicle stick, just to keep it from bending over. I assembled the top as directed, and the rest of the furniture mostly as directed as well. Now when I got to the sewing table, I did make some additional changes. The kit comes with some cardstock that you're supposed to use for legs, but I decided not to use those. Instead, I'm using the large frame that comes with it, and I'm going to use this as one set of legs, This is the side that's going to be covered by fabric, so I didn't care if this was seen. And then I cut off the largest piece from the ironing board, which I won't use at all, and I cut that to be the same size as the frame and use that for the other side of my desk. And next, onto the chair. I'm actually going to use most of the chair that's provided, but as you can see, I pulled out the cardstock that was supposed to be used for the desk. And instead, I'm going to use this for the back of my chair. Now this piece was actually originally intended to be the work table that's covered by cloth. I decided to use this as a display, so I stained this and 3 popsicle sticks with the same stain I used for the floor. Then I put that together to form a small platform and put that to the side. Lastly, I assembled the stool, and then I painted this and all the other furniture pieces black, including the mannequin that came with the kit. I also pulled out the 3 skewers that were supposed to be used for the fabric holder, cut those down to size, and painted those black as well before wrapping them with the fabric that I got from Joann's. I actually went into Joann's and got 1/8 pieces of fabric in different satins and tools. They were anywhere between 60 to 80 cents each. And then the green and gold beads are beads provided by the company, but the light grayish bead was mine. I stacked all 3 of these on top of each other and painted them a sage green, and then glued them directly into my vase. Next, I rolled those into the green fluff that the company provided, and I assembled my fabric holder. Simple and elegant. Next, onto the sewing table. I'm going to finish assembling this now, mostly in the way that is directed in the instructions. But I am leaving out a couple of pieces, like the small wrench-looking piece and the larger wheel. I'm going to use the other wheel for something else, but I am going to use a smaller one for this. Follow the directions to assemble this, but because I don't have the legs that are supposed to be used, I'm just going to glue this directly to the bottom of the kit. And then I painted my sewing machine and the stand that it goes on into a white, and gave that silver and gray accents. A little glue along the edge of the table. Then I cut out 2 of the rulers from the paper they provided and glued a separate piece of fabric onto the table to look like it was being sewn. I also used the knobs that they gave me, except I painted them silver. And then using the same silver Krylon leafing pen, I used the smallest pair of scissors and painted those in a very familiar silver and orange. And moving on to the cabinet, I used some cut-off mirror from a previous project, and I covered most of it with the mirror. Then I'm using the filigree beads that they gave me, and I cut those in half to make clamshell pulls. Now this piece of aluminum was something that they enclosed to make a clipboard. I decided to nix the clipboard, and I drew a small U onto the aluminum. Then I used one of the dowels and wrapped this around it. cut off a piece about 1 inch long, and glued that to another piece from the ironing board that I decided not to use. Once I glued the aluminum on top and held it at a slight angle and allowed it to dry, it became a perfect necklace stand. And for a bracelet, I'm using a small piece from the chair that I didn't use, a toothpick, and another small cut-off of dowel. Then I went into a Walgreens and picked up some small kiss jewels. These are nail jewels that go onto your fingernails. They cost about $3 for a packet, but as you can see, they make nearly perfect jewelry. So I made a necklace, several bracelets, and using the leftover piece of aluminum, I painted it black, bent it at an angle, and made some quick earrings as well. Onto the flowers. I made these exactly as they were supposed to, with the exception of painting one side pink, and then I rolled them up in the paper that I cut to a zigzag leafy shape. But later on I decided against using it that way, and I'll show you what changes I made. However, I made the tulips almost directly as they were supposed to be made. Using the red paper, I cut that into squares and folded it asymmetrically. Then I wrapped it around the stamens that they provided, and just like that, I had a little tulip. Now, there were no instructions provided for the roses, but I knew how to make these from previous satin roses that I've made in the past. You're simply rolling a piece of paper or satin if you'd like, and then folding it as you go along. So you roll, roll, fold, roll, roll. And then I used a small strip of green paper left over, wrapped that once around the base of the rose, and twisted the rest of it to form a stem. Then I'm going to use this small drinking cup they provided to be a glass of water, and I filled that with glue that dries clear, and I put in half a dozen roses and rose buds. And although there were 3 or 4 box patterns that were given, I'm only using one, the M16, and I colored this in with a gold leafing pen. That's where I put my purple and pink flowers that I started off in the beginning with. And then onto my shelf, you can see I've painted it black and added 2 shelves of clear plastic packaging onto the front. Now I'm going to add a 3rd shelf onto either side. And here's my window that I've discarded at the very beginning of the video. It's been painted black and framed in coffee stir sticks. And now it's going to be the front of my display cabinet, simply by placing a piece of plastic packaging over it. Then I put in first my purple and pink flowers, my pink roses, my yellow and orange tulips, and allowed all those to dry before proceeding with the next step. In the meantime, though, I placed those to the side. Then I folded one of the books that the company provided and used some extra grass. Now, this project is not included in the kit, but I'll show you this anyway because it's really quick and easy. I simply used the bead that they provided for a coffee grinder, and then I put some pieces of grass on the inside. Next, this little oval bracket was meant to go at the bottom of the table that was covered with the cloth, and the toothpicks were originally supposed to be part of the chair. And since I didn't do any of those as I was supposed to, I put those together to make a small display. Then I used the template provided for the hat and made that as instructed, except instead of using their fabric, I'm using a little piece of leftover white satin. Simply drape it over the hat and press it in place. glue it down, and make sure to add glue to the other side and fold it over. Now naturally the satin is heavier than the cotton that they provided, so this did have a little bit of a bubbling on the back of it. But no fear, I covered that with a leftover piece of chiffon. And then I embellished the front with 3 of the little white pearls that they left in one of the packets. This filigree bead was also in the packet, but I'm not going to use this as intended. Instead, I painted it white and attached a small piece of tulle at the bottom. That way I felt like it looked a little like a Juliet cap veil. And here's the rest of my coffee grinder. I stacked the pieces, largest to smallest, glued those on top of a small platform, and then added a grommet, a piece of toothpick, and a large bead for my personal collection. I painted the whole assembly black and added a little piece of chiffon onto the back of the veil. Then I'm using some of the same glue and water solution and painting the veil to keep it stiff and in place. This lace was supposed to go on the bookshelf, but I cut off the very bottom layer and glued it to the bottom of my veil. I added pegs to the bottom of my mannequin to give it a little more height. And these were the pegs that were intended for spools of thread. And then I used white chiffon and white satin. To make a really quick dress. I used the chiffon first and cut this into small panels that I draped over the breasts and across the back. Bunched them up at the shoulders, glue it in place, and then I used a little bit of tulle that I had already in my collection to form a small dress skirt. I simply draped it and twisted it, and then I added a little more at the bottom to give it some more volume and a bit of a fishtail skirt. Then I laid the whole piece down and traced an outline of it on top of the fabric. And then I cut the fabric out probably about 1/2 inch to 1 inch wider than the pattern I traced. I added some glue to all the edges to secure it and keep it from unraveling, and then I glued the back in place first and folded the white directly on top of it. Then I used the leftover piece from the mirror to stabilize it, added on another piece of chiffon as a train, and then using some fabric glue I simply painted on a small embellishment and sprinkled on some iridescent white glitter. And just like that, I had a really simple dress. Now the booklet provides instructions for making some pillows, and I only made one using my own white satin that I embellished again with some chiffon. You simply spread the glue onto the right side of the fabric, press another piece of fabric on top, allow it to dry, cut off the excess, invert it, fill it with the cotton fluff that they gave me, and then either sew or glue it closed. I made quick shoes out of some of the leftover wallpaper, wire that they had in the kit, and some nail decals. And even though they provide a mirror sheet for the mirror, I'm deciding not to use theirs. I used my own because I made my mirror almost twice as big as the one they gave me. And you can recognize this large wheel that was part of the sewing machine at first, but I've cut it in half and used it as a sunburst design to go on top of my newly formed coffee stir stick mirror. And now I'm using the very last piece from the ironing board and I cut a dowel to fit in between. And made this small stand and painted the whole thing with the gold leafing pen before gluing it together. And now that my furniture has mostly been set up, I'm going to start gluing things into place. And finally, here's the display case that I started on earlier. You can see I've added the cap onto it. And now I'm just inserting that small bulb that I had to the side from earlier inside the top. That will help to illuminate the inside of the flower cabinet. Then I continue to add all the accessories. And last, but certainly not least, I glued on the display where my dress is, adjusted my train, and added in the stool that displays the veil. The shoes go in front, as well as a small pillow. On the other side, I glued in the small piece of fencing that looks like a wrought iron detail, and then these two black strips along the front. And that's it. You're done. Thanks so much for watching, guys. And thank you very much, Robotime, for providing this kit for me. I had so much fun making it. And audience, if you'd like to enter the contest, don't forget to read the description box below for all of the details.